Today's lecture is about New Age thought. I'm a New Ager, but I don't like to say it because that's just like saying you're a Christian. Everybody has this preconceived notion of what that word means. But anyway, there's all kinds of New Age. I'm going to talk about four major people. And so, for the test purposes, if you just keep focused on those four people and some of the terms that they use. New Age is not new. It's like this is from, let me see if I can get my pen on here. I think right here, 1909. And so around the turn of the century, and I'm not talking about the 2000s, I'm talking about 1900s. Anyway, there was this return to old spirituality. It was an alternative to Christianity, the Judeo-Christian, world. And so they got into mysticism, holism, pantheism, even the occult, and so try to, give people an alternative to Christian spirituality. This alternative spirituality, like I said, if you say you're New Age, like I don't get into past life regression or try to see ghosts or, claim psychic powers. I don't say that those things don't exist, but that's not what I'm into. I'm more into like these things up here. Meditation, not really channeling either, but I do talk about reincarnation and kind of holistic health. Those are the three areas I'm going to kind of focus on a little bit, but you'll see as I go along. The reason I say it's not New Age, this whole word New Age, most of New Age is stuff that's been around for centuries. It's just recycled Buddhism or Hinduism, for instance. And I'll show you those coming up. The first person is Ernest Holmes. I like Ernest Holmes. He wrote this book, The Science of Mind. It's not Scientology. It's the science of mind. Don't confuse it. And so he focused on this scientific approach, and it's all about your thoughts. And he didn't even believe in things like reincarnation and definitely not magic or channeling. So he just basically focused on the scientific approach about how our thinking guides our life. One of his most famous quotes right here, life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. Now, he is most famous for the law of attraction. He's definitely not the only person that's talked about it, but he talked about it way before people talked about it currently. Now, here's my take on the law of attraction. Your mind is a fertile place, like dirt. So all kinds of things can grow in dirt. Weeds, whatever, flowers, all kinds of things. So thoughts are like seeds, and you focus on your thoughts. And so when you have a thought in your head, it's like a seed. Now you don't have to like pay attention to every thought, but I had the thought that you did. So I tend to water seeds I shouldn't be watering. Like over here, I can't get my pen to work. The weeds. I just think if a dark thought comes in your head, you have to pay attention to it because it's in your head. It's like, no, you don't. Just don't water that seed. It's like maybe you should focus over here, Tim, and water these seeds over here instead of watering this one. Why don't you focus your ass on these over here, the strawberries, and tend to the strawberries. And so when good thoughts come in your head, focus on those. This is what Joel Osteen is. He's a Christian preacher, but really he's the law of attraction. He's always talking about what do you focus your mind on? Is it this or this? Says you can't wake up in the morning and just let your mind be on autopilot. You have to make a conscious decision where you're going to tune in. Okay, so I'm going to explain. James Allen from Christian Theology says, just as a gardener cultivates his plot to keep it free from weeds, growing the flowers and fruits, he weeds out all the impure thoughts and cultivates all the pure thoughts. God, this is what I need to do. I'm terrible at this. I totally don't focus on the good thoughts. I focus on the bad thoughts. So, anyway, I don't know if you've seen What the Bleep Do We Know? The Secret. I argue it's not a secret, but both of these are the law of attraction. This is from AA. So this is from AA literature. When I focus, it's Dr. Paul's story. When I focus on what's good today, I have a good day. When I focus on what's bad today, I have a bad day. If I focus on a problem, the problem increases. Uh-oh. If I focus on the answer increases. Okay, so I hope that you get this, but it's very powerful for your One of the things I talk a lot about is looping because I'm OCD. I loop on stuff. I can't, especially now being alone in the coronavirus. It sucks because I just like obsess on every single thing around my house. Now, a lot of times when I talk about meditation, people go, "Well, I'm a terrible meditator." I go, "No, you're not. You just call it something else." So maybe I should speak for Tim. I'm a really good meditator because it's called worry. I can worry about like a thread on a shirt for 10 hours in a row. It's like, oh my God, that one little thread. Do you think anybody sees it? And so that's how crazy Tim is. So here's one of my favorite quotes, or actually, I hate this quote because it comes from the Dalai Lama and he says something, if it can be solved, then don't worry. And if it can't be solved, then basically don't worry. It's like, well, Tim, that's all he does is fret and worry. So if I could shift my attention, Joel Osteen, off that radio channel, that's the worry channel, onto the faith channel, then I would be better. So the last little thing I think I'm going to say about meditation, but we'll see. One time I heard a Buddhist monk talking about meditation. He says, your mind is like a train station. So he uses this analogy. And that there's trains coming through it all the time, but you don't have to get on every train. It's like, what do you mean? He says the trains are like thoughts. It's like every thought that races through your head, you don't have to get on. It's like, oh, because I thought you had to get on it and ride it until it was just dead. You know what I mean? It's like, and he says, furthermore, if you stop getting on a train, it will stop coming around so much. And it's like, you mean I don't have to get on the Tim is a piece of shit train as soon as it rolls around at 3:30 in the morning? It's like, no, Tim, you don't. And if you stop getting on it, maybe you'll stop rolling around at 3:30 in the morning. Maybe not permanently, but a lot less often. So I hope this makes sense, this whole thing about the law of attraction. What you put out into the universe starts to come to you because you manifest it by the way you see the world. And if you see the world in a positive way, like a magnet, you will draw good experiences to you. This is why I do love Joel Osteen. If you see the world in a negative way, then you will start to draw negative experiences to you. I don't know if I used this analogy last time, but I heard this one time, if you're an angry person, there's going to be an asshole around every corner. You manifest that. Of course, I thought it was the last thing I was going to show in this section. Actually, I have a couple more things to wrap up with this whole idea of what you focus on. This comes from indigenous, tradition. And so what they believe is that, or at least some of the tribes, that every morning when you wake up, there's two dogs, two wolves that live in your head. One of the wolves, is the dark wolf, and says dark things. They both want to be fed, and one is the white wolf, and he says light things. And so each morning you have to decide which wolf to feed, kind of like the Joel Osteen thing. You can't wake up and just put your mind on autopilot. I would argue it gravitates towards this wolf if you do that because I have so much experience. You know what I mean? If I let my mind go on autopilot, what's going to happen is I'm going to listen to the dark wolf. Why? Because I feed him the most. The whole Tim is a piece of shit. Your life is not going to work out. You're going to end up, single and dead. This whole thing, you know what I mean? And so I feed that all the time, but it's not good. I should feed like, Tim, you're a great guy. You know what I mean? You got a lot to offer. It's like people like you. It's like you have, a role in this world that God has blessed you with all these talents, but sometimes I don't feed that wolf. And it's up to me, the decision on which wolf to feed. Now, I call this to wrap up, this is to wrap up, mental nutrition. If I have a stomach ache and I go to the doctor and he says, Tim, what do you eat every day? And it's like, well, every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I eat In-N-Out Burger because it tastes good. And he goes, well, there's your fucking problem right there. You know what I mean? You can't eat In-N-Out Burger every fucking day. And it's like, but I like it. It's like, yeah, even though it tastes good, you need to mix in some shit like this over here, Jim. It's like you just can't eat whatever you want to. It's like, I can't. It's like, well, you're here at the stomach doctor, aren't you? Now, think about this. If I just feed my head, if I can get this to come on here, anything I want to all day long, because I like watching violent TV and playing video games, and then also getting into this stuff down here, resentment, fear, and despair all day long, and that's what I feed my head. Then I show up to the head doctor, psychiatrist, and I say, man, I just feel depressed and angry and anxious, and he goes, but what do you feed your head? They don't ask you that. That's what makes me mad about the psychiatrist or psychologist. It's like, why don't you mix some of this shit in, dude? You don't have to eat it all the time. because sometimes it's fun to watch a violent movie, but you might want to like mix in some scripture and spiritual books and not just watch news all the time. You know what I mean? And so it's up to you, and that's why I call it mental or spiritual nutrition, because I have to watch what I feed my body, just like I have to watch what I feed my head. Sorry about the pen craziness, but hopefully that made sense. Okay, so this is guy number two or person number two. I should be politically correct. And so the second person I'm going to talk about is Gary Zukov. Gary Zukov definitely changed my life when I started to read his material. One of the things he deals with is rage and anger. It says started to write books to help himself with his own issues. You know what I mean? So I have those issues. So he was a Green Beret in Vietnam. Imagine that he might have anger issues. But he started off because he book over here, Dancing with the Wu Lee Masters, but this is about quantum physics and it's like way smartsier than I am. And I love this stuff, but whatever. This is the book right here, the one that really like completely changed me. It's like I was in Cancun. I remember it because I was on vacation. It's like I had this book, and it's like I don't know why I had it. Somebody gave it to me. I just started reading it, and the next thing I know, I was like, wait a minute. Later on, I'll talk about it, but it started talking about all this stuff. It's like, how does he know that? It's about our manifestation on this earth and what our purpose is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are later books right here, Soul Stories and Heart of the Soul. I've read both of them. They're both good, but Seed of the Soul is the one. He talks about Earth School. This is why I immediately was drawn in. He goes, this place is called Earth School. It's an environment for learning. The physical experience is for the purpose of learning. Now, even from a Judeo-Christian experience, you would say that was true too. But I'll get back into this. Okay, so whatever. When we come to Earth, we have different lessons we're going to learn here on Earth. Now, there might be other schools too, you know what I mean? But our Earth might be a low-level school, like elementary school, you know what I mean? Because look around, see what people are like. But eventually, you might graduate to other schools. But the idea is, Earth school, you have a lot of lessons to learn here, and then you would reincarnate over and over and over until you learn those lessons. Okay, I'll get to reincarnation here in just a minute. Second thing, okay, so again, keep in mind, Ernest Holmes is law of attraction. Gary Zukov is like you're coming down to earth to learn something. And part of what we learn is sacred contracts. It's like, well, not what we learn, but what we enter into. We enter into these sacred contracts to accomplish these lessons. It's almost like you sign up for a curriculum. You know what I mean? Like when I come down to earth, I have to learn about this, 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 and this so my spirit can grow. But then we forget about it because we're born as a little baby, but somewhere inherently we have this knowledge that we came here. And then our experience will awaken within me the memory of that contract. The idea behind contracts too is that me and you have a contract. We agreed to be each other's like student and teacher. Maybe in other lifetimes it's vice versa, where you're the teacher and I'm the student. And then we have these contracts, and the reason that me and you agreed to this is so that we can learn from each other. Now, it goes even further than that because he believes that you pick your parents. So does Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer was telling this to his daughter one day. It's like, yeah, you picked me. It's like, she goes, I picked you to be my dad before I was born. He goes, yep, that's the way it works. And she goes, man, I must have been in a hurry that day. And so it's silly, but the idea is you pick everything. But I totally agree with this. I picked my dad as much as I bitch about him. I picked him. I picked him because it was a sacred contract I had to learn about, self hatred. And I picked it. Okay, so I don't know if you believe in that. He does believe in reincarnation because if you don't learn the lesson, no worry. This is why I don't worry about people that commit suicide because you're just going to come back in. It's almost like a video game. You checked out at that spawn point, you're going to come back into that, spawn point to respawn. And so, whatever. That's why every time I think about offing myself, I go, damn it, I'll just have to come back and restart. That's going to suck. It's like Dark Souls or something. It's like that thing is hard. You know what I mean? I don't want to start over. It's like I might as well just stick with it and just learn the lessons. And if I have to keep coming through over and over and over until one day I don't come through anymore because you're done with our school. You graduated. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Okay, so this is this great story from Soul Stories, one of the books that he wrote about a Native American man and his interpretation of reincarnation. It's the best one I've ever heard. Talks about Father Sky and Mother Earth. You can see right here. And he raises his hands above his head and he looks towards the sky and he says, when the clouds are full, and then he looks right at the person, they open and rain falls. When your mother was full, she opened and you fell to earth. This is a story about a raindrop like you. You can't see my raindrop over here, dang it. Okay, so I have a cutesy raindrop right here. He goes on to say this raindrop lands in a meadow and it joins other raindrops, kind of like I joined you in this lifetime. Sometimes I flow together for a while, we flow apart and go to other streams. But anyway, the trickle becomes streams, and then the streams become rivers, and the rivers go to the ocean. And what happens is the sun smiles, and then the water turns into mist. But then it turns into a cloud, and when the cloud is full again, it opens and another raindrop falls to earth. It's not the same raindrop, but it's kind of similar and it makes its journey back to the ocean. I love this. It's so amazing because the water motif thing, and so you get this circle over and over and over until one day you don't have to come back anymore because you learned the lesson. And this you have this circle of reincarnation right here over and over and over, the raindrop making, but one day it turns into mist and then you make a union, remember from Hinduism, with God, and you become completely united with God and don't have to come back. That's why I'm not afraid of death. I can't wait to make moksha. I have right here, I don't think you can see it. Oh yeah, this one right here is moksha, this tattoo. But anyway, I have moksha on my arm. It's my ultimate goal. Okay, the third person I'm talking about is Carolyn Myss. That's how you say her name. Here she is. I actually went to Peru with a group that she led in 2000. She looks real sweet right here. She's kind of grouchy, or at least that's the way I found her to be. But she works in energy anatomy. That seems kind of weird, but it's almost like psychics. The police use psychics to solve crimes. I guess if they didn't work, they wouldn't use them. Doctors, actually, medical doctors use her, and sometimes in these weird cases where they can't figure it out, she's able to locate the problem. This is where mind, body, and spirit come in because she's a medical intuitive. She uses intuitive powers. And I forgot, this is where we went back in 2000. And most people talk about I went to Machu Picchu and they're down here. I got bored. I climbed all the way to the top. Tim has been right here. I'm not kidding either, because I went up all these pathways, and then when I got down, everybody's like, "People have died doing it," and it's like, "Well, I didn't die, and I got to be right up here, and it's really high up in the mountains." I'm not kidding. But anyway, enough about. She's written this book. She was working on this book when we went to Machu Picchu, but she's most famous for this book. If you go over to Barnes and Nobles or whatever, look online, you can see a bunch of books by Carolyn Myss. Now, I do because she talks about chakras. Now, one of the things I want you to know for the test is that we have 7 chakras. Now, here they are from low to high. So down here are animal chakras. These because they tie you to your nether region. So root is right, at the base of my spine. That's what ties me to the ground, roots me into the ground. The crown chakra is where I leave from when I die, so it's the most royal. If you look at Roy G. Biv, the rainbow goes that direction for a reason, because you have low energy light down here at the bottom, animalistic, and high energy light, royal light, Raj, up at the top, purple. And so the heart chakra is right in the middle, and this is the thing I always tell people. It's like this is the big key to everything is your heart chakra because it's in the middle. She talks about this too. It's the bridge. She gave this whole lecture about Jesus. When he was down here, it was like, Father, why have thou forsaken me? When he was up here, forgive them for they know not what they do, because he'd moved up through his heart chakra. This is why it becomes supreme, his apotheosis, if you will. Okay, so Anyway, so 7 chakras, remember that. And this is the other thing, I forgot I had this on here. It's like, see these lower ones, Kama and Artha, especially like she would start to see diseases. This is why she was used, like people would get like prostate cancer if they had a lot of things about pleasure or whatever, or stomach cancers. Up in here might have heart problems if their heart chakra is closed off, you know what I mean? Throat cancers, maybe brain tumors or something. So she would like work on people based on chakra healing, which is kind of weird, but she works with doctors. Okay, so the book that she was writing, Spiritual Alchemy, I don't know if you remember the alchemists were trying to turn lead right here into gold right over here. So here's a picture of an alchemist. It's a famous one. I don't know if this is the one they use on the book, The Alchemist, but anyway. So the spiritual alchemy idea, lead, heavy, gold, light. First 3 chakras, heavy, rooted to the earth, gold, crown chakra, third eye chakra, light, spiritual. Here we go. If I come back to the chakras, these are low energy chakras right here, and that's like the serpent. Ties me to the ground. So I stole this from a movie, The Serpent and the Rainbow, but I like it because we are caught as humans between the serpent nature, we are animals, and our rainbow nature, we are spirits. And so I have this duality. This is what I hate about myself. I do love being pagan and serpenty, but also I want to be spiritual, and the two are kind of, at odds with each other. And really what I should do is try to escape my leaden nature, which binds me to my earthly home, my secular home, and then get up here into my golden nature, which is more of my true spiritual purpose here on the earth. Okay, so this is the 4th person I want to talk about, Don Miguel Ruiz. He's so awesome. He's one of my favorite people. He writes all these texts, neo-shamanistic. You don't have to remember that, but as new shaman. And that's why I'm saying that there is no such thing as new age. I mean, his stuff is all based on things that are ancient South American teachings. Okay, to focus on, but he's written on so many different books. The Fifth Agreement, not only The Mastery of Love, The Voice of Knowledge, there's a bunch of different ones, but the Four Agreements is what most people know. I'm going to also talk about The Mastery of Love. One of the things he mentions, I think this is in the Four Agreements, is the metote. And the metote, I do want you to know for the test. The metote is the chaos of 1,000 different voices in your mind, all trying to talk at once, which drives you crazy. I don't know if you have this in your mind where all these different voices are talking to you. He kind of describes it as a fog, and it confuses us about the truth, and we have to work our way through the fog. And so this chatter is the metote. You have all this chatter in your head, and that chatter has to quiet down because the truth has to break through the fog. The light has to break through the fog. Now, I just call it what it is, the deceiver, the devil, you know what I mean? The accuser of the brethren. Whatever's chattering at me, there doesn't have to be a real devil, but that's what Tim calls it. So the metote, I hope that I make sense with this, that the first thing you have to awaken from is to come out of the fog. Okay. Now the second thing he talks about is magic. I have this little whatever magic thing over here, but you can't see it. And he says, not like old school magic, because I think his great grandfather was the one that Carlos Castaneda went to visit when he studied with the sorcerers. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about right now, but you should, because I lectured on it. And he says, the magic is the word that comes out of your mouth. Actually, just this week in Mass, they were focusing in on how in the beginning there was the Word, that the Word is what, from God at least created everything, but it was the Word, and they focus on that. But the Word is something I have too. And so our words are our most powerful tool that we have in our tool belt. But like a sword with 2 edges, where your word can create or destroy. Look down here. And so if you think about it, on one edge is the misuse of the word. He says that's what most people do. And on the other edge is the good use of the word, if I can get cutesy, is impeccability of the word. And so your word is pure magic, and if you misuse it, it's like black magic. Drift here. Are you going to be a white magician and bless people with your words? Or are you going to curse them with your words? Because the labels and the words you speak over people serve as these curses or blessings. And so it says it right here. Every human is a magician, and we can either put a spell on someone with our word, or we can release someone from a spell. We cast spells all the time. It's like, dang. When he starts getting into this is why I like him so much. So he says, when we grew up, this is part of my problem, it's not all everybody's fault. During our domestication, all of our parents and siblings gave their opinions about us. You should be this, that, the other. And so you start learning all this stuff, and they're casting all these spells on you, and you're casting spells on them too. Okay, so it goes both ways. Now, so one word is like a spell, and humans will use the word like black magicians all the time. But see, a white magician is different. I hope I can read this over here. He uses the word for creation, giving, sharing, and loving. So I have to think about this. Do I curse other people with my words or bless them, especially my enemies? Because it's easy to bless, your friends. I'm going to say about magic, at least, it says we cast the biggest spells on ourselves. It's like, damn it. And this is the problem that I have and that I live with. It's like, Tim, stop casting negative words on yourself. That was the law of attraction I was talking about earlier about feeding the black dog. What channel do I go on to? You can see how all this starts to become interrelated. It's really the same thing. It's like, am I going to feed the white or the black dog, be a white or a black magician, this, that, or the other? Okay, so this is a story. I forgot it's on here. Oh my God, I hope I don't lose it, but here it goes. It's called The Magical Kitchen. It comes from The Mastery of Love. And this is how the story goes. You don't have to remember this one, but I love this story. Imagine you have a magical kitchen in your home, and in that magical kitchen, you can have any food. You can cook anything you want to all day long, every day of the week. And so you give your food to other people unconditionally. Not because you want something in return from them, but you just give it out of pure love, unconditional. Okay, hopefully you're following my drift. When you have this magical kitchen, someone knocks at your door and they show up with this pizza down here and they say, I'll give you this pizza, but you have to do whatever I want you to do. Now, if you do whatever I want you to do every day, I'll bring you pizza every day. Now you're going to say, whatever, I got a magical kitchen back here. Why don't you come in and we'll cook pizza and we'll eat it together because I don't need your pizza, right? Imagine exactly the opposite. Imagine you don't really remember you have a magical kitchen and a bunch of weeks have gone by and you haven't eaten and you're so fucking hungry. And then that doorbell rings or that knock comes on the door and there's this person with this pizza. You can smell the pizza and almost taste it. And you're so hungry and they say, hey, here's this food here. You can have it if you just do whatever I want you to do. That's like love. If you don't love yourself, you're starving. And so when those people show up to your door, then you'll just take the pizza and you'll let them control your life. But if you love yourself, you have a magical the kitchen that you have, you can always have pizza in. Do you know what I'm talking about? Tim does. It hurts like a motherfucker. And it's like, this is so. The lesson that I came to teach today is this, that you can't fix self-hatred with other love because these people will always control you because you have to do what they want. Otherwise, you don't get the pizza. It's like, God damn it. That's why I got in a big argument with the people at church about, the love of Christ. It's like, is it really true? Because everything seems transactional. You have to do things for the pizza. Do you really get the pizza for free? Okay, so Tara Brock, I don't know if I mentioned her in class. Maybe I played some of her in class. I think I did. The spacesuit thing. Anyway, she talks about this trance of unworthiness that we live in. I totally identify with it. It makes sense to me, the trance of unworthiness. Carl Jung, if I can speak correctly, says the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. I really think that's true for everybody. I think everybody's in the closet in a way, and they think that it's like, oh, if I accept myself completely, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? The magical kitchen. That's what's going to happen to him. And it's like, but I'm so scared. It's like, yeah, but all you're scared of is your magical kitchen. So I hope I'm, because this is what the Dalai Lama says is the purpose of life is to be happy. Okay, so this is the last thing that I want to talk about is that this comes from AA. Obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. I say the opposite of this. You're going to obviously transmit what you do fucking got. So if you're angry, depressed, sad, that's what I got to transmit to the world. This is what makes me sad about dealing with depression and anxiety, because sometimes like I don't want to transmit that out to the world. I want my heart chakra to be open so that I can transmit love and happiness, kind of like Mr. Rogers. I want to transmit this way. This guy was a transmitter of pure love, if you believe in that kind of stuff. And one day there was a lawyer that tried to trick Jesus and said, Master, what is the great commandment in the law? And he says, well, here's how I'm going to answer that. There's only two things you need to remember. Number one is this: love God. Number two, love your neighbor like you love yourself. And so love God, love other people. Those are the only two things you need to do to follow the way. Pretty easy, right? You don't have to be Christian like me, but here's the cross right here. If you love God, that's this direction right here. Because God will give you an unconditional love. This is my problem because I don't understand the mercy aspect and the love of Jesus and all this other stuff. But if you get your love from above, then you can give your love out in an unlimited fashion, be a fountain. But if you do the reverse of this, where I'm trying to grab love from people and from the world, then I made them a god in a way that there's just never ending. It's like I can't get enough secular love that would equal the mercy of this thing right here. I hope I made sense. That's the end of my lecture. Thanks so much for being in my class. I wish we were in person, but we're not. I'll see you next time.